It's always interesting being the person that stands between a crowd and their lunch. It always feels like a dangerous situation. So how many here work as software developers or designers, like individual contributors? You actually do things on the software that ships. All right, how many do we have that are like PMs, managers? All right. This isn't talk for you. Like, I don't know how you, I'm kidding. The techniques I will be sharing, they really go across the board. Like, everybody can use them and they work for everyone, but I'm actually addressing the specific situation that a lot of individual contributors, such as software developers, designers, testers, end up with, especially as they gain seniority. So when you leave here today, I'm going to give you one simple formula that you can apply. And you're going to be able to use that for two things. One, you're going to be able to use that to make the people around you grow and get better, which is great if we want high-performing teams, which is the next speaker's subject. And the second thing is you're going to unburden yourself, unblock yourself from taking on other people's work, which is great. So what I'm going to be talking about today is I'm going to be talking about one skill, 3 different coaching formats, and 5 questions. So it's really simple. But it's not what I talk about here today that is complicated. What's complicated is what you do with this when you get back to your company, if that's tomorrow on Friday, and how you actually apply this. Because while the things that I'm going to be showing you are really simple, it's the applications of those things that are hard, and it's getting them right that is hard. So I encourage you to take this, try it out, massage it, make it your own. And if you do this, I can promise you a few things. One is you will listen to people differently. You're going to speak with people differently. And in turn, that's going to change how people perceive you. You're going to be more appreciated of the people around you. So my name is Martin Mazur, and I work as a consultant, coach, and public speaker. I've been working for about 20 plus years in the software industry. I started out as a software developer. I've spent all of my years as a consultant. I basically don't know any other type of work than consulting. But this has given me the privilege of to work with huge companies, small companies, startups, scale-ups, stock-noted companies, very well-functioning teams, and extremely dysfunctional teams. And I've seen a lot of the things that developers and individual contributors end up in the different situations. And I've helped some of them get unblocked. So it's upon this experience that I give you this talk here, which is my distilled learning of how to actually move beyond some of these things. And I also use this in my own work when I do coaching with my clients. So it's something I practice every day. Of course, you can find me on the internet, on the select social media, scan the QR code, you can book a 30-minute online session with me if there's anything you want to talk to. It's completely free. The first one's always free. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is I want to bring the attention to you that if you've worked for maybe 5, 6, or plus years, you might be moving into becoming the hero in your organization. That feels good. And this isn't your own fault, right? And even if it feels good, that's maybe not the best position to be in. But this is not, it's not because of you. Because we as, especially technologists, if we work with tech or we work with delivering software products, we've been fostered in a world where correctness, where creating the correct thing is the most important thing for us. It's the thing that we get appreciated for, and it's the thing we get rewarded for. Building software that actually works is good. So everything in our world is black and white. It either works or it doesn't. It's broken or it's working, right? So on the back of this, we've learned that solving problems is probably the best thing we can do. So when we see a problem, the first thing our brain goes into is solution mode. Here's a problem, and I have to fix this. Now, this is the thing that ends up becoming the hero problem. Because as our organization grows and our company grows, and we mature inside of that product or inside of whatever we're working on, people start showing up at our doorstep with problems. So we do what we do best. We say, oh, show me the problem. And we look at the problem, we go like, I know how to fix that, and we fix it. Or if we don't know how to fix it, we go like, oh, that's curious, I haven't seen that before, but leave it with me and I'll fix it. And soon enough, the whole organization goes like, oh, Martin's so great. Like everything we bring him, he magically fixes. And PMs go like, you know what? Don't go through the official channels. If you have a real problem, go to Martin because he has this magical way of fixing it. And now all of a sudden, we're not only doing our own work, we're doing a lot of other people's work as well. But we're the hero. It's great. Like people appreciate us. We're mentioned. We have attention. We're the fix-it person. Everybody's counting on us. And then something happens. Something happens. The organization grows, or we get an investment, or we scale. We bring on new people to the team. Now, when that happens, there's more people at our doorstep. There's more problems that come our way. And all of a sudden, it's unmanageable. It's taking a personal toll on us, right? So now we're not keeping pace. We're not being able to answer all the questions. We're not being able to do all our work. And then we have to ask ourselves the question, what happens next? Well, in the words of Harvey Dent, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So dying a hero in this sense is you probably just burn out. You quit showing up to work or you go on sick leave. You just don't cope with it any longer. When you become the villain, that's when people start saying different things about you. Well, I never go to Martin anymore. He's so snarky and uncooperative. Every time I bring him a problem, he just goes like, I don't have time for this. Like, I can't, why are you bothering me with this stuff? Or maybe, I've seen this actually happen. Maybe we start saying everybody else is the idiot. We go like, I don't know how this is possible. Who are we even hiring here? Like every single person on this team, they can't fix the simplest thing. And I've heard this, and then I went in to the code base and I checked the commit history. And on the core components of that code base, it was the person calling everybody else an idiot that had every single commit for 3 years. And go like, if you made every single commit to this thing for 3 years, how are you expecting everybody else to fix problems? You ask the people around, like, why don't you fix problems? I don't dare, because every time I do it wrong, and then they yell at me. So that's the villain. Now, some villains build bat caves that they hide out in. Those bat caves, we call those Jira tickets. So they don't communicate with people anymore. They just send angry comments in Jira tickets, do it this way. Or they send down PowerPoint sketches of the architecture that they want implemented. They become completely disconnected from reality. So the question is, if you're the hero now, you're just one step away from becoming the villain. It's okay. That's what I'm here to help you with. So a lot of people that before they go over the line actually do the same thing, because we are all sane individuals. They go ask for help. I know I've asked for help. I went to my managers, coaches, other people on my team and said, listen, like I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. People are constantly asking me questions. I don't know where to go with all this stuff. I think I screwed something up. Could you help me? And the problem that I faced when this happened to me, which I want to kind of help you not face, is I got one of several of these comments. Some of these are made up and some are real. Just say no to things. Like we've heard that. That's not an actionable thing. It's easy to say, but when you work in a collaborative team, just saying no to things is not a great way of handling some of these situations. You need to delegate more. Now, I'm sorry to all the managers and PMs and people here in the room, but us individual contributors, we can't delegate. We don't have a team to delegate to. So this is not helpful to tell people you should delegate more, because usually we don't have anybody to delegate to. You need clear boundaries. Like I haven't tried that before. Like, is there more obvious comments you can come with? You need to protect your time, a variation on that. Don't take on others' work. Well, yeah, it's too late now. This one is my favorite one. And this is actually a manager once told me this. Have you tried just not caring so much? I'm sorry I care about the product we're trying to ship. Um, this, thank you, salesperson. This is a salesperson once told me, you can just clone yourself. Ha ha ha. Funny to you. I'm feeling like shit right now. Just tell everyone you're busy. Now, the thing is, when this happens to us, we see one problem, but we actually created two problems. The first problem is the obvious one. You just became the bottleneck in your organization. That's the you problem. You've created a situation because you wanted to be helpful, you wanted to solve problems, you wanted to give people answers, where all of a sudden, everything flows through you. You haven't empowered the people around you to make the decisions, to make the calls, to solve problems on their own. So you're now the bottleneck. And as organizations grow, as teams grow, as products go, bottlenecks are bad because that hinders us from shipping more good stuff to our clients. Now, the second problem, which is actually the worst problem, which is actually the problem that I want you to address after coming to this talk, is the they problem or the them problem. You've also simultaneously robbed a whole bunch of people on your team of growth opportunities. You've actually created a situation where they have not had the opportunity to grow into the roles where you need them to be. So this is not a problem only for you, this is a problem for your entire organization, and you might have unintentionally created that. So this is where we move into solution mode. This is where I'm going to talk about coaching. But before I do that, I want to have a little check-in with what I mean by coaching, because a lot of people mean different things by coaching. So I want to have a clear definition, at least for this talk. So when I talk about coaching, I talk about the coaching that was, I believe this was coined by a man called Timothy Galloway, who was a tennis coach way back when. Now, what Timothy discovered was that he was a really good tennis coach, but when his players would do a mistake, he would say, hey, you did that mistake, you should do it differently. They would correct in the moment, but then eventually they would fall back on their old behaviors. So there was no lasting change. So he tried something different. He tried just bringing attention to the problem that he was seeing and letting the player discover the solution on their own, because usually the person knew how to do it correctly. So I knew nothing about tennis. So when they did like a faulty tennis move, he goes like, hey, where was your right hand and your left foot in that move? Where was that? Did you think about that? Now that led to the players not only discovering what they were doing wrong, but also correcting and creating a lasting change inside of that correction. So this is the type of coaching I'm talking about. So I'm talking about helping others discover solutions. I'm not talking about solving problems for others. I want you to ask good questions, not give answers and instructions. I want you to focus on the person. So in this situation, what we're doing is we're taking focus away from the problem or the ask or the thing that they come to you with and moving it on to them as an individual. So we're not focusing on a problem. I want you to focus on the long-term growth. So again, these techniques are something that we do in the long run to create better situations for the people in our teams. We're not talking about immediate outcomes. If you're in a crisis, if you're in crunch mode, if you have an incident, that's not the time for coaching. But in all other situations, you use these techniques in order to invest in your team, in order to invest in the people around you. Now, it's also about adapting to others' needs. So every coaching situation won't be the same. They're all going to be slightly different instead of using a one-size-fits-all approach. Now, I want to stick a little bit with this last one because I do understand the irony of me standing here and saying, I'm going to give you 1 skill, 3 formats, and 5 questions to solve all of your problems, and then having a slide saying there's no one-size-fits-all approach. But hear me out, hear me out. What I'm talking about here is not a framework that you can just go out and say, like, this is a thing, it's going to work, and it's going to be. This is a starter kit. Like, I'm giving you this as a starter kit. It's a great starting point for people that have not used coaching techniques before, that are new to coaching, in order to get started with talking differently to people. Eventually, you're going to find out what works for you. You're going to find out what works for the people around you, and you're going to adapt it. I have these things in English, I have them in Swedish, I have some person that translated them, I believe, to Spanish. And like, if you want to make a Norwegian version, collaborate with me on that, you know, hey, let me know, and we can set that up. Now, let's jump into the framework or so-called thing I'm going to talk about, which is the 1 skill, the 3 formats, and the 5 questions. And we're going to get started with the absolutely most important thing, the 1 skill. Now, if you leave this talk with only, if you're hell-bent on just taking 1 learning from this talk, this is the learning you're taking away. Like, everything else follows from this. So this is the most important thing you can take away. So what do I mean by active listening? Well, the way I usually phrase it is it's paying your full attention to the person that is speaking. Meaning, not waiting for your turn to talk, not waiting for your turn to ask a question, but bringing your full attention to the person that is speaking and engaging into what they're actually saying. Paying attention to both the explicit information, meaning what they are saying with the words, but also the implicit information, what they're saying with their body language or the way they talk, the tone of their voice. Is it, you know, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they drawn back? Like, what are the other cues of information that are being given? So this also means you need to avoid distractions, because people are very susceptible to you not actually being there when you're listening. I don't know how many people here have kids, but kids are really good at calling out your bullshit. So when you talk to your kids and you have your phone in your hand, they're going to be like, hey, you're not listening to me. You're not, because you're somewhere else. This is the same thing when you talk to people in your workspace. If you're still sitting in your laptop and you're talking with people like this, you're not really listening to them. They don't believe you're listening to them. Now, so don't check your phone, don't check your watch, don't look outside of the window, look at the person, try to maintain eye contact. That's going to communicate for them that you're actively listening. And the same way that you read their body language, they're going to read your body language. So if they're telling you a sad story, you know, don't seem all cheery and happy about it, you also have to mirror that inside of your own body language and the way you speak. Now, when I say this explicitly, everybody goes like, oof, that seems so hard. But the thing is, if you just listen to the person in front of you, we all kind of do this naturally. Most of us have that level of empathy and communication when we speak to people, that we do this naturally. The only thing we need to do is make sure we actually focus on the conversation. So there's also concrete tips and tricks you can do. And these are, you know, my favorite one is the summarize and repeat. Now, if I actively listen to someone, I can take out what I believe that they said, what I heard, and I can paraphrase that back to them. So what I heard you saying is this and this and this and this. This serves 2 purposes. 1, I check in that I actually understood what was being said. And number 2, if I paraphrase that correctly, they're going to know I listened to them. They're going to feel heard. So this is a very effective way of doing it. We also have verbal cues, the ums and ums, the the nods, you know, the things we do naturally when somebody speaks to show them that we're engaged in the conversation and have them keep speaking. So the active listening thing is something that, you know, I think a lot of people could practice. We live in a distracted world. This is a skill that's definitely learnable. So think about this when you talk to people, at conferences. Don't wait for your turn to speak or your turn to tell a story. Just try to actually listen to what's going on. And for me, all of this boils down to empathy, which is, I don't have a specific empathy slide in this talk, but in a lot of other talks, I talk about empathy as a learned skill. And for me, empathy is not about agreeing with what the other person is saying. It's about creating an understanding inside of myself that whatever you're talking about, that's true for you, given your experiences, what you've been through, and your background. I accept that that is your truth. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to believe in what you believe in. I only have to believe that whatever you're saying is true for you, given your experiences, your background, and what you've been through. That is true empathy. So I have an exercise that I sometimes run at conferences. I chose not to do it here today because, one, I want to keep a little bit of time, and also we're in Scandinavia, so people are a little bit awkward talking to strangers. But you can get the exercise on the QR code. It's called Coach Like a 5-year-old. Now, coaching like a 5-year-old practices active listening. It goes, the way it happens is one person describes a problem that they're having, and they start talking about the problem. When they stop talking, the second person can only ask, why is that, what is that, or how is that, or how did that happen, or how. So why, what, how? Those are the only 3 questions. Now, person 2 then uses all of their mind to kind of focus on what is being said. And you kind of do that for a period of time. This is an exercise based on the 5 whys, so it's kind of a root cause analysis. It's not a full coaching session because it solves nothing, right? You never get to a solution. But one, it teaches you to kind of dig deeper, and it also practices your active listening because you are not focused on what do I need to say next or what question do I need to ask, because you only have 3 choices. So you can wait. You can wait with deciding what you need to say next. So it's a very nice way to practice active listening, and you can do this as an exercise. But don't mistake this for like full coaching. Don't go out and like actually use this in scenarios. Tell the people that you're doing this, it's an exercise, as otherwise they're going to think you're crazy. All right, so that's the one skill. Again, if you take nothing else with you, remember, take the active listening with you, practice the active listening. I promise you, that alone is going to make you better. It's not going to help you unburden yourself, but it's going to help, it's going to change how other people perceive you. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is coaching formats. I'm going to go through 3 coaching formats, but there's actually only one that I think is mostly relevant to coders or individual contributors or people working in this type of thing. But I'm going through 3 of them because I want to clear up some misconceptions about what coaching is and coaching is not. So the first format I'm going to talk about is the format that everybody thinks coaching actually is. So when people go and say like, I want to become a coach or I want to get a coach, what they mean is they want to become a formal coach or want to get a formal coach. Now, formal coaching is the type of coaching you imagine. I go into a room with my coach and we sit down for a 1 hour, 45-minute session. We talk about something. It's usually some skill I want to improve in or some area I want to get better in. It's some type of change I want to be making, right? And we talk through that thing and I get some homework with me and I go out and I apply the homework in real life. And I come back and I sit down with the coach and I say, this is how it went, this is what happened, and they talk me through and I get some different homework. So when people think about coaching, this is the type of coaching they think about. Now, formal coaching is great, but formal coaching also has a problem. Formal coaching needs a coaching agreement. You have to agree to be my coachee and I have to agree to be your coach. So we have to agree that this is a relationship we're entering into. And this is the dynamic of the relationship. So when it comes to, people showing up at your desk and needing help with stuff, that's not actually going to be something you can apply. And the second thing about formal coaching that's also a little bit tricky is that it doesn't happen in sessions. So usually we work on like longer periods. We have these recurring things and we work on one thing we want to get better in over time. Now, the techniques I will be showing you work perfectly fine in formal coaching. You can definitely apply them inside of a formal coaching session. And also, you can apply them twofold. You can apply them inside of the session, but you can also use the techniques, the 5 questions or 5 steps I'm going to be showing you later, over a longer period of sessions, saying 10 sessions. So we spend 2 sessions on one thing, 2 sessions on the next one, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like it goes in 2 levels. For most of you, this is not going to be relevant, the formal coaching, unless you have juniors or apprentices on your team and you want to set up formal coaching sessions with them, then that's great, you can do that. But for most of you, this is not where you're going to get the most value out of this. Where you will get the most value out of this is what I call impromptu coaching or on-the-go coaching. Now, that's the coaching that happens inside of the meeting, inside of the conversation, over lunch, over coffee, at your desk. That's the type of coaching that happens inside of the situation. It's much quicker, much more snappier. It focuses on one specific issue or problem that is here and now, and then we can solve inside of the conversation. It's a thing that takes usually 10 to 15 minutes, and the kicker is, since it happens inside of a conversation, you don't need to have a coaching agreement with the person you're coaching. You simply slide into the conversation, and you use coaching techniques inside of the normal conversation in order to have them work through the thoughts that they're having to arrive at a good solution. Now, this is the best way to start. And if you get really good at this, if your goal is to eventually become a formal coach or you want to do formal coaching, if you get really good at this, people are going to ask you to become their coach. It's happened to me several times. You do this a couple of times with a person, and you go like, you know what, you've been helping me so much with a lot of stuff I've been coming to you with. Would you want to have, I don't know, coaching or sit down talks once every 2 weeks maybe we can. I was like, yeah, sure, that's great. Let's set that up. So if your goal is to eventually move into formal coaching, this is also a great way to start. And this is mostly what this talk is going to be focused on. All the examples are on impromptu coaching. However, all the techniques I'm showing work in all 3 different coaching formats, so you can apply them across the board. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is probably the most complicated one, but it's also really, really fun. So it's team coaching. Team coaching can be formal or it can be impromptu. The difference here is you're not addressing one person. You're not just coaching one person, you're coaching a group of people. For me, this is a great format when you need to address things like team dynamics or team performance, or you want to address a whole team in order to work through some problems. It's also the most complicated one because all of a sudden you're not in a one-to-one conversation. You have conversations coming from all different angles. So there can be fights and disagreements, right? People talking over each other. So you have to have 3 different skill sets. It's not only that you need a coaching skill set, you also might need to have a facilitator skill set to make sure everybody's voice is heard and to make sure to summarize what's actually being said inside of the conversation. And you might also need a mediator skill set, because if people are in a disagreement, you might have to go like, listen, you agree on these 3 things, but on these 2 things you're actually in disagreement. Like, could we work through these in some kind of structured manner? And you're going to have to know when to switch persona or when to switch skill sets and have a coaching mindset versus a facilitator mindset versus a mediator mindset. So this is really difficult to do. So this is definitely not where you want to get started, but it's good for you to understand that this exists and also that the skills that I'm showing you work in this type of format. From my perspective, where I work with a lot of teams, this is a very efficient way to address a team, especially when there's low trust inside of the team. Because if I move into one-on-one coaching directly, there's always going to be suspicion. It's like, oh, what did you talk with the coach about? Did you talk about me? But if I take them as a group and I work through with them as a group with team coaching, everybody knows what was said in that conversation. And it's much easier to build trust. And it's much easier to build those relationships in order to then go into one-on-one coaching with the people that need it, because everybody might not need those things. All right, so those are your 3 formats. Now let's get to the gist of what we're actually talking about here. Now let's move in to the actual questions. So we're going to be going through 5 different questions or 5 different question types. The first one is the initiation questions. These are the questions that drop you into a coaching conversation. Those are the questions you do in order to discover what conversation are we having here. Then we have the excavation questions. Excavation questions are the one that lets you dig deeper into the problem, because the things that people tell you are the problem are usually not what is the actual problem. Then we have focus questions, because once you've done excavation, you might have 10, 15, 20, no, maybe not, but 5 problems on your table. And you need to figure out which one are we focusing on here, because just like you do in a retrospective, you're not able to solve all the problems on the table, and they might be related. So if you solve the most prioritized problem, maybe some of the other issues are going to get solved as a bonus. If not, you can come back to the conversation later. Option questions. This is where we explore what are our options. What have you tried before? What skill set do we have? What resources do we have at hand? What can we actually do? And then we move into the action questions. That's the fifth step, where we create something that is actionable for the person that we're talking to. So this is not a feel-good conversation that makes them feel happy. This is something that also gives them an actionable thing. So when they move away from the conversation with you, they have something they can act on. And this is also the step that creates that thing where you are not left with the problem. They came to you with the problem and they left with the problem, but they're also now inspired and have an actionable thing to move to the next step. I'm going to use a fictional case here, or a couple of fictional cases. And in my fictional cases, since they're fictional, everything flows really neatly in one line from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not how real conversations happen. I recognize that. But the reason you should think about these 5 steps is because even if you go 1, 2, 3, and then you go back to 2, now you know you're on 2, you can go to 3, 4, you might go back to 3. If you know how the conversation is structured, you can keep a map in your head of where we are in the conversation in order to know what type of question to drop next to move the conversation closer to an action, all right? So it's not going to look as neatly when you do this in reality. That's why you need to practice. That's why you need to go out and do this in reality with real people to start getting some experience of how these type of conversations flow. Now, so let's talk about initiation questions. Initiation questions are the ones that drop you into the conversation. Like, what's on your mind is one of my favorite ones. The one I probably use the most, because I'm a relaxed person, is what's up? Which is also a nice question. If you have a piece of work, or you have something that you want to show, or somebody's showing you something, it's what do you think is also a great question. There are some things to avoid. I tend to avoid questions which have to do with emotions and moods. How are you? Are you feeling all right? Is everything okay? Because what we're trying to solve here is actual work problems. You know, we are not trained psychologists or anything. Those are great questions to ask people as a friend or as a coworker, like, how are you? Are you doing okay today? You seem tired. But those are not coaching questions. We are not able to do anything with that in a coaching sense. So we want to get things that are actionable in the terms of, you know, hey, what's on your mind, or what's up. I also tend to avoid things that, you know, the classical, how's it going? How's it going? Or how are you doing with that ticket thing? Or what are you working on right now? Because those can be perceived as status questions. So especially if we are more senior than the person we are asking, they might be, oh shit, they're checking in with me. So then they're going to be like, oh yeah, no, everything's great. Like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. And we're not looking for status here, right? So we don't want to have any type of status questions. And then there's the classical, do you have any problems or do you have any issues? The stand-up question. Now, that is not a good initiation question for coaching. And the reason that is not a good initiation question for coaching is because if your mind wasn't on a problem and I ask you, what problems do you have? You're going to dig deep to find problems. And we're not looking for you to dig deep to find problems to talk to me about. We just want to know if there's anything I can help you work through right now. And then, of course, any question that can be answered with yes or no is bad. And that's generally bad in coaching, because we want open-ended questions where people can reflect. So if you can answer yes or no to the question, that's not going to fuel the conversation forward. So let's jump into the scenario and see how this can actually work. So this is a fictional scenario between a tech lead called Taylor and an engineer called Sam. So Sam shows up and goes like, hey, Taylor, got a minute? You know, already you're feeling the stress because you know, oh, I'm going to get some work out of this conversation. And Sam goes, and then Taylor goes like, hey, Sam, what's on your mind? So here's the initiation question. And Sam goes like, oh, I'm feeling the crunch with this feature release. We keep getting last-minute changes to the requirements, and I'm worried we won't make the deadline. Can you help? Now, here's where Sam is trying to get our help, and we, as a great person, a great coworker, might be like, sure, I can help you. Like, show me what the problem is. Maybe I can talk to somebody else, can take some work off your hands, or maybe I can do some of the work for you. You know, all of a sudden we go into solution mode and we try to fix this issue. But let's not do it this time. Let us go to the next thing. Let's talk about the excavation questions. And there's really only one really great excavation questions, and it's "and what else?" And what else is a brilliantly formulated question. You can have variations of it, but this is the question that goes and prompts people to dig deeper. However, this is not the best way of doing excavation. The best way of doing excavation is actually really hard. It's called shut up. Because when you're quiet, people tend to just go into the next thing and keep talking. Because everybody hates that tension when quiet happens and they want to fill the void. But since everybody hates that tension, you hate that tension too. So you want to have something to say, and then you can say this. The cool thing about "and what else," and the way we're going to be applying it, is we don't ask this question once. We ask it multiple times until we feel that we've gotten to the issue that we want to work through. When is that, you ask? Well, it doesn't really matter, because if you go too far with this question, the next question is going to fix this. So go "and what else" until you feel you're going in circles. That's probably when it's time to move on. So let's try this out. Go like, all right, it sounds like there's a lot to handle. We show some empathy, we show some understanding, we empathize with the situation. And what else is going on? Sam keeps going. Well, it's like every time I think I'm done, another change request comes in. It's like I can't keep up and I'm getting worn out. So, all right, so this is taking a personal toll. We might want to jump in here and help again, but let's keep digging. I get that, I get that. It's tough. I've been there. And what else is going on? Well, actually, I guess part of the problem is that I haven't been pushing back on these changes. I'm just joined the team. I'm saying yes because I don't want the product team to feel like I'm being difficult. Okay, right? So here's something that we didn't know. So this person is new to the team, and actually, it's maybe not the workload that's stressing them out. It's maybe the pressure they're putting on themselves, because they want to be a high performer. They want to show that they can perform in this context. And if they were more comfortable inside of the team, maybe they wouldn't be acting the way they are. If this was a real scenario, I'd probably dig deeper here. I wouldn't kind of jump into the next thing. But for this demo, let's just jump to the next question so we don't get bored. So next thing, I promise you we have a question. If we went too far, we use the focus question. This is a very precisely formulated question, so I want to bring your attention to how this question looks. What is the real challenge here for you? Now, the most important part of this question is the "for you" part. Because if you, by some mistake, just drop the "for you," you go, hey, what's the real challenge here? Then this conversation changes context. Now the person you're talking to might be talking about, well, this company, the management team, or, the budget we got, or the impossible project, or the time scales, they can go on a tangent about anything. So it's really important to have the "for you" in there and not drop that by mistake, because the "for you" creates a context where we're working with the individual and actually gives us something that we can work through. It gives us something that we can move on to the next step with. So let's see how this plays out in this scenario. So we thank them, we empathize, thanks for sharing. So what's the real challenge here for you? I feel like as part of the team, I should be able to handle everything that comes my way. It feels like everyone else is managing. As the new person, I don't feel comfortable with saying no. So we're getting somewhere. And here again, this is getting difficult, because at this point, we might want to share our own experience. We might want to be like, you know what? When I was your age, I was once in this situation. And what I did was, but let's avoid that, because when we do that, we're not sure that's helpful. They are not us. maybe the things that work for us won't work for them. And also, if that fails, they're going to say, I knew it was going to fail because that was just what Martin told me to do. And if it succeeds, they're going to be like, I can't really take credit for it because that was on Martin. So we want to help them find a solution that is in their power to do and adaptable for their context and for their person and for that situation. And we don't know enough. So this is why we have the option questions. Now, and here is where I cheat. Because option questions are not really one question. Option question is a whole battery of questions that helps you explore everything around the problem. These are questions like, what have you tried so far? What have you tried before? What resources do you have at hand? And what else? The excavation question works great in this context as well. Who do you think could help? All of these things that we're trying to kind of walk around the problem to help them create a full spectrum of scenario of options that they can use. The purpose here is to just generate this type of understanding. So let's go into this and see how this this works. So that's understandable. What have you tried so far? What have you done to manage the changes? Well, I've been working long hours to stay on top of things, and I tried creating a list to prioritize the tasks. But I end up saying yes to everything anyway, so it hasn't helped much. Now, see, we're glad we didn't suggest to create a prioritized list because that's what usually works for us, because they already tried that. So this is why we do the option things, because we don't want to suggest things that are not going to be helpful or not going to work. All right, we go down. In similar situations when you felt overwhelmed, what's worked for you? I've managed it better before by checking with the team to see which parts were really needed for the deadlines and which could wait. But this time, I've been too worried about disappointing people. So this comes back to some kind of grounded fear of, I'm new to the team, I don't want to be disappointing, I want to be valuable, I want to show that I'm a good person or a productive member. We go, makes sense, we empathize with that, and then we go like, oh, what resources or support do you have that could help? Like what's out there that you think you could be doing? Well, I suppose I could clarify priorities with the product team and maybe let them know that I'm under time pressure. The maybe here is important. They're still kind of uncertain. They don't really want to do this. But I'm not sure how to start that conversation. Okay. We're getting somewhere, and here again, we might feel that we're done, and we go like, oh, you know what you can do? You could just, we have an open climate in this company. You should just go talk to them. It's going to be fine, or you just send an email, or their door is always open. Like I talk to them all the time. Do you want me to come with you and we can talk together? We're not going to do this in this scenario. We want to create agency. We want Sam to own the problem and own the solution. So we're going to sit on our hands and not try to go into solution mode. What we're going to do is we're going to create an action question. And there's multiple action questions depending on how aggressive you want to be with the action. What are you going to do about it is a much more aggressive thing. So what are you going to do about it? And people go like, oh shit, I actually have to do something. What's the smallest step you can take? What is the next step? But you could also pair these with accountability questions. So an accountability question might be something like, when are you going to do that? Or send me a text message when you're done. Or should we check in on this tomorrow and see how you're doing? That depending on the relationship you have with the person, accountability questions might work sometimes, might not work sometimes. You have to decide on a situation by situation basis. But having an action question is really important because you want to get to that final action. Another thing you can go is, what will you do when you leave here? Or there's actually another one which I try to avoid when it's an impromptu. It's, what do you want from me? Now that's a dangerous one because sometimes they go like, oh, I don't want anything from you because I have to do this and this. And sometimes they go like, I just want you to take the problem off my hands, and you just went full circle and you're at the beginning of the coaching conversation. So I try not to use that question too much in impromptu coaching, informal coaching. it's much easier because when you're a formal coach, people understand that you will not be taking on of their problems. So you go like, so you've been telling me, what do you want from me? They can be much clearer. I want you to talk me through this piece, or I want you to help me with this thing, right? Now, let's pop in an action question and see where Sam ends up. That's a good starting point. So what's the one step you feel comfortable taking to get that conversation going? So I'm playing off the maybe, I'm playing off the insecurity here that Sam has in this conversation and going like, what's the thing that you would feel comfortable with doing? Like what is it that you can do on your own that it's inside of your both agency and comfort zone? I think I could reach out to the product lead and ask for a sync on priorities. Maybe frame it as a way to ensure we're focusing on the highest impact changes. I should let them know how each change impacts the timeline so they understand the trade-offs. Now, this can be tough for some of us in a coaching situation because we know the real problem. The real problem is they're new to the team, they want to be performing, they want to do all this stuff. You should probably have that conversation with the product lead. But they don't want to, that's not comfortable for them. So we might want to be like, oh, you should do this other thing. But that's not what they need. They need to do the thing that they believe they can do. Then we can bring them into a different conversation later on. So we say, that's a good idea, because it is. I mean, it's a good idea. It's not what I would have done, but it's a good idea. That's a good idea. And then we put in the accountability, because I'm afraid that Sam here is going to run off and not actually do this. When are you going to set that up? I'll send a message by the end of the day to schedule a time with them. All right, that's fantastic. I'm kind of happy with that. Great, let me know if you need any support. We're still open, the door is still open. Even if this doesn't play out, you're welcome back. Remember, it's completely okay to clarify priorities, to keep realistic workload. You're doing a great job. We give them some affirmation. We tell them they're doing great. We show some empathy. You're doing a great job balancing everything, right? And we send them on their way. This conversation maybe took 10, 15 minutes, but we didn't end up with any extra work. And we empowered Sam to move out and do something do something on their own, right? So this is the 5 simple steps you can go through. Now, there's also other types of coaching we can do with this type of framework. Now, we have decisions and advice. Because sometimes people don't show up with challenges or problems at our door. They show up for us because they want us to make a decision or they want us to give advice on a specific subject. Now, this mostly looks the same, but there are slight nuances. So I want to walk you through coaching for decisions and advice. Because what we're trying to do in a situation where somebody shows up with this is we're trying to create heuristics for them. We're trying to give them rules of thumb for them to kind of work through the different steps in order to create, create a framework that they can lean on in other types of situations. So what are heuristics? Well, basically, if you think about Agile Manifesto, like we have people and interactions over process and tools, that's a great heuristic. If these two things are ever at odds, I'm going to pick people and interactions, or customer collaboration over contract negotiation, or the US military uses when you're stuck behind enemy lines, keep moving, seek the high ground, and stay in touch. That's a heuristic because we don't know what's going to happen, so it's good to have easy rules to follow. So basically, this is what we're trying to do with this conversation. Instead of giving them the decision or the advice, we're trying to give them a framework and how they can reason about this type of problem on their own. So again, we're back to the conversation. We have, hey, Taylor, got a minute? Hey, Sam, what's on your mind? I hope this is not an affected subject, but which framework should we use for our next project, right? And if we have a strong opinion, if we're an architect, if we have to make this call, we should, of course, make this call. But sometimes it just doesn't matter. And what we want to do, again, is playing the long game. We want to grow the people around us. We want to create empowerment and ownership. So we want to push the decision to them. Well, you decide. But if we say you decide, they don't know how to do it, because that's the reason they're at our doorstep. So we go like, what criteria do you think are important when choosing a framework? So we ask them, what heuristics are you using? Like, what are you looking at? And they go like, I don't know, maybe ease of use. All right, cool, that's a good one. And what else? You see, we have the excavation question. Community support and resources, I guess. Anything else? And they go like, nah, I can't come up with anything. That's the things I got. And this is where we do something different, because this is when we inject things inside of the coaching conversation. You normally don't do this, but when you're doing this, when you're trying to build a heuristic, this is the time when you inject things into the conversation. So for this project, I would also consider scalability and then always check the licensing agreement of the frameworks. Great. So, and they go like, oh, of course, should have thought about that. And then you go, oh, so now we have ease of use, community support, scalability, and licensing. And we check in. Do you know how to get all of that information? And they go like, yeah, should be easy. They know how to get that information, great. And then we check in again. If you have that information, will you be able to make the decision based on those criteria? We check in again. And they go like, yeah, I think so, thanks. Because now what we created is the next time they need to think about picking a framework or picking a tool or picking something, right? They now have a framework in the back of their mind that they can lean on, and they do not have to come and ask those things again. So this is all we're trying to build. We're trying to build this way of people solving their own problems, so we do not become the bottleneck in the process, and they grow and we get better teams, we get more empowered teams. Now, of course, this is not only with the people we work on a day-to-day basis. You can use these techniques with basically anyone. You can coach your managers, or you can coach even peers, but then that might look slightly different, because starting to talk like this to your manager might feel weird and awkward, and they might not be open to this type of feedback from somebody. But the thing you can do is there's a special type of question you can use in order to engage in a coaching conversation with somebody that you would not normally be able to have a coaching conversation with. And I call this a permission question. This is basically asking if it would be okay. So the permission question is quite easy. Would you be open to talking through this? Or would you be open for me to ask a few questions around this to clarify what's going on? So we continue with our fictional example. And in this example, we have a product manager or a chief product manager. And they're kind of worried. They go like, well, I'm going into this big meeting. Let's say this is an all hands. I'm going into this big board meeting later this week to secure funding for a product division. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not sure how to frame it, but don't worry, I'll figure something out. I like this product manager. They're sharing their information with us, but they're not saying that, we should worry. They're saying this is my work, but like you should know what's going on. So in this situation, we might want to help out with this, but it would be weird if we just go like, hey, and what else? So what we can do in this situation is we can ask permission. So we can go like, would you be open to talking through this? I might have a few questions that could provide some perspective. Now, ideally, if this was in an all hands, I would not do that in the meeting. I would probably do that after the meeting. I would take the person aside and be like, hey, would you be open to doing this? And they go like, yeah, sure. Can you do it tonight? This is a busy person. They don't have daytime. We could order some food and eat while we talk. Now, that's up to everybody to decide if that's the way you want to work or not. But, for people in management positions, this is sometimes the reality they have to face, that they have to, in order to have these extra conversations that were not in a schedule initially, they might have to do it at awkward hours. So in this case, I'm going to choose to accept, sounds good. And then when we're in that other conversation, we can pretty much follow the 5 steps exactly the way that they played out in the other conversation, because now we have permission. Now, the great thing about doing this with, if we talk about coaching up or coaching sideways, is that you learn a lot about the organization and the product when you do these conversations, which means that you actually become better at doing your job because you have more in-depth knowledge about what's going on inside of the organization. So maybe you help, but even if you didn't help in that conversation, you gained a lot of knowledge that's going to help you become better at doing your job. So this feels really weird in the beginning, but when you get this right, you're such a value of doing these types of conversations. Now, before I move into summarizing everything and closing everything out, I just want to talk about 4 things that I see as pitfalls. I'm just going to touch on these briefly because we don't have that much time. So the number one thing I want everybody to be aware of is, while I do not believe that you need to be a licensed coach to do coaching, you can coach anyone, and you don't have to coach inside of your discipline. You can coach managers or other people that work with completely different things than you do. I do believe that you need a license to be a trained psychologist. So some of these questions are phrased in a way that you might bump into real psychological issues. You might bump into real life problems that people are having, or some kind of things that you should not be handling as a software developer. In this case, you snap out of coaching mode immediately and you go like, listen, you know what? This sounds really serious. We should get you some help. Come with me. I'm going to take your hand. We can walk over to HR, or we can walk to the emergency room or whatever, where they can actually get some trained professional to help them with this. Especially if these are serious questions. Like, I have had conversations where people have actually admitted to suicidal thoughts and stuff like that, and you want to break that immediately. You are not trained to manage that stuff. Get them to somebody who's trained. Now, the shoulder to cry on syndrome. Now, sometimes people come to you and they just start going off on stuff, and you're not sure where this conversation is going. And this is where the kind of, what do you want from me question is really important. So when I go into coaching conversations and I feel people are just rambling and they have this like very weird state, and it's like, oh, this happened and this happened and this, and I can't figure this out. And I go like, and I try to coach them through this, and then eventually I just go like, what do you want from me? And they go like, you know what, I just want you to listen. Like, you just hear me out. And go like, oh, cool, this is what we're doing. And you don't have to think about the coaching anymore. You're just a shoulder to cry on, you're listening, that's great, right? Sometimes that's what people need. But if you say, what do you want from me? And they're like, I really want you to help me. You go like, oh no, this is a coaching conversation, and you continue what you're doing. So check in if you perceive this. The next one is gossip. Now, gossip is when people come to you and go like, oh, you know what Fred did? I work with Fred, and you should have seen the code that Fred wrote, and I can't even believe that he checked that in. And now that's going out in production on Monday, and you know Fred, and blah, blah, blah. And you go like, huh. So in that situation, what you do is you snap them out of it, and you look them straight in the eye and go like, so what did Fred say when you told him this? And the people usually go, oh, shit. And if they're smart enough, most people already just walk away and they fix the problem directly with Fred, because you don't want to be in the gossip situation. That's not the way we build great teams. And the last one is the third person. So this is very similar to the gossip thing. However, this is when I have a problem, but I push that problem on somebody else. I project that problem. So the problem is mine. It's something that's affecting me. But I say, well, I wasn't able to do this because of them and that and this situation and the framework and blah, blah, blah. And I'm feeling this, but like the thing that my problem is not on me. It's because we have all of these structures in place. And then you use the question, what is the challenge here for you? You bring it back into context. Because you can't deal with a third person problem in coaching. You have to bring it back to something that you can deal with in the subject. And we have a few seconds left. And so before I close out and I bring up the next speaker, I just want to walk you through what we've had in this talk. If you take nothing else with you, take with you the active listening. We talked through 3 different formats. That's the formal coaching, impromptu coaching, and team coaching, where the impromptu coaching is the one that's probably most valuable to you. And we have the 5 different steps. We have the initiation, where you drop into the coaching conversation; excavation, where you dig deeper into the problem; focus question, where you bring focus into what is actually we're trying to solve here; option question, when you explore the problem; and then the action question, when you create a concrete action for the person to do and move on to the next step. And in the words of Peter Block, I leave you with this quote: "Questions are more transforming than answers. The skill is getting the questions right." And I hope you have some starter kit, some fodder for doing that now. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.